Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today I'm bringing on my financial advisor slash planner to discuss a topic that's important. And I remember maybe 6 months ago, a year, I forget, I was listening to some other podcasts, and the guy on there talked about, building a financial fortress around your family, and it really resonated with me. And I had done a lot of that actually just by, having our guest today, Michael Gisonda, in my corner. But when I had my first child, it was 2020, and at 40 years old, assets have built up in different things, a lot of moving parts, 3 businesses, own the office real estate, own a house, a lot of stuff going on. And I'm the sole provider. So, we did a lot of things to really protect that. And then we even did a will and trust. And we did a lot of things, not only uh, that if I were to pass away would protect my family, but being being alive, also protecting from things like the economy or whatever. So it really is twofold when you got to think about building a financial fortress around your family. It's being very sound while you're alive, and then if God forbid something happens, what's your plan there? And so this episode, someone had reached out to me wanting me to have this show. I thought it was a great idea. So I brought Michael on to discuss that, some of the things we did for me, some of the other ideas, and really starting to get together a game plan for this. Because as much as we don't want to think about it or don't think it's going to happen to us, we obviously know the reality, and so you got to prepare for that, and you also got to be very sound financially. Currently. And so we talk a lot about that. Excited about this episode. It was really good. Got a lot out of it myself just to kind of go through some things. But I think it's important, and we try to provide you on this podcast all things professional and personal growth and development, and protecting yourself and your family is a big part of that. It gives you peace of mind, gives everybody a plan, and we dive into some of the variables of that. So it's really good. Before we get into that, just a little bit of a kind of update on MCM Mastery. We did a push, and we did get 45 members before the end of the year, and we onboarded everybody, and it's been excited. It was like the group coaching calls are going amazing. We're doing the marketing for chiropractors now, so our members have marketing done for them and coaching. They have the ability to reach out to me and Kurt and others for help in their practice, and so they're not on an island. Now that we have onboarded that, we are back open for new members. If you're interested, just go to our website, modernchiropracticmarketing.com, and fill out the form there. It goes directly to me, and I directly respond. And if you're interested in it, I even set up a consult call with you, me and you, to discuss if it's a right fit for you. But we're excited about the growth. We've added a chief marketing officer, Melissa Weber, which has been great. We've added different trainers for training programs. So like in January, we started front desk training. So this is for your front desk staff. In February, we're doing it for clinical CA. So each month we're having a call for your team members. So we're really trying to be your plug into your practice with a team around it that's really holding you accountable, developing a plan for you. And we've also added in the Chiropractic Success Academy to that. So you get everything that's involved with that, with the digital dashboard and the great trainings and lessons in there. And so it's a very comprehensive program that we're excited about, and our members are giving us great feedback for. So you could check that out if you're interested to taking that next step in your practice. No matter if you're trying to get over the hump of profitability or you're killing it and you need to know what to do next, we have members of all levels, and it's exciting to grow with them as well. So check that out, modernchiropracticmarketing.com, and fill out that form and submit it to me. All right, here is my episode with Michael Gisonda. All right, welcome to the show. I got Michael Gisonda on this week. It's an exciting topic for many because it's much needed. Sometimes it's not sexy, but I had a couple chiropractors reach out to me actually to dive a little bit more into what I mentioned somewhere. I can never remember where it is, but I talked about listening to an episode, and the person talked about having a financial fortress around your family to where everybody's protected, in case the worst happens, or even if just you fall on difficult times, you've got this protection around your family. And so a couple people reached out, asked if I'd have a guest on, and the person I first thought of was my financial planner and advisor, and that is Michael. And so welcome to the show today. Tell us a little bit about yourself personally, professionally, and then we'll dive into the fun stuff here of assets and insurances and all that type of stuff.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah.
A little about me personally. I'm 52. I've been down in Florida since 1999. I married with three kids, almost 14, 15, and 16. Surprisingly, I still have all my hair on my head. And so life's busy. In addition to that, I'm an endurance athlete. And that's how I got to meet Kevin. When I got into this crazy sport, I started having all these things just show up, camp this, camp, shoulder that. And Kevin was great at keeping me tuned up so that I can do my thing. So I love that. That is a big part of my life. And happily married. And, again, just a little bit about me, myself a little more. Been down in Florida again, 23 years. I'm originally from New York, grew up in Southern Italy for a period of years. I speak multiple languages and have a passion for what I do. And so I started in the business back in late 1995. And before that, my dad owned a construction, landscape, hardscape type of business. So I grew up around a family of entrepreneurs and saw them develop business and saw some right things and some wrong things and learned a lot of what to do and also a lot of what not to do.
Mhm.
When I moved down to Florida, I was an investment advisor up in New York, primarily building portfolios. So that was where my core competency was at the time. And then I moved down to Florida, where I got more into the whole holistic planning aspect of things. And shortly thereafter, I was lucky enough to meet a gentleman that was in the business a long time, very well respected in the community. And he was slowing down. He was 65 at the time, and I was ramping up, and we hit it off. And so over the course of a few years, I ended up our practices merging. So our firm now has been around since 1963. We are a holistic boutique planning firm. We're not for everybody, but for the folks that we do work for, we do provide a lot of value, I like to believe. And think of us as almost outsourced family office, right? So outside of bill pay, there's really not much we cannot handle. I love working with blank canvases, meaning folks that are just starting out and they don't really know anything, or maybe they do have some concepts under control, but they're thirsty for knowledge.
Mhm.
And I also like working with folks that have been successful in life. And so we'll take a deep dive and look under the hood and see if there are any gaps in their planning. The analogy that I like to give, and whether you're working with a planner or an advisor, because they are different, I'll talk to that a bit, is that when you're working with a true planner, they're coming to you for a better understanding of what your roadmap is.
Yeah.
And once you've identified that and you really know where you're going, then we take a really deep dive. And that could be anything from any estate planning estate planning documents like wills, trusts, and so forth. Business documents, if you're an LLC, your operating agreement, if you're an S corp, just the articles of corporation, who the partners are, and then obviously the stuff that most advisors do, but they overlook the other stuff, which is their assets. How are things titled? What are they? What's the next? What's the risk tolerance? And once we have that, we have the goals and we have the objectives, it's pretty easy to map out what direction they're going to. And so if I sit with you, Kevin, and you tell me, well, when I retire at 65, I want to be here with this kind of a lifestyle. I want my debt paid off. Maybe I'll sell my practice at that point in time. And then we map that out. clearly we can see if that's going to be a reachable goal or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if there's a gap, we expose it and then we'll give some solutions around that gap. And there's different ways of getting there. There's multiple ways to skin a cat, and everyone has a different appetite for planning. Some of this stuff is like running another business, and some of this stuff, or most of it, I should say, is really simple to do. It just takes a little bit of work, some time, and the right kind of guidance. And so we'll look at it and we'll say, well, wait a minute. You mentioned that you wanted to be here at 65, and based on what you're telling me, you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
And here's what we would recommend for you to get there. And then obviously they have to buy into that
Mhm.
that need, that gap, and then we're off to the races. And a big part of that, as we talked for you and just in our conversations over the years, is really looking at what the risks are. And so I'm not just talking about risks in a portfolio, but real risks outside of that. And those can come in multiple ways.
Mhm.
It can be a lawsuit. You didn't need to cause a 3-car pileup on the highway,
Mhm.
and someone's really hurt or not here anymore. And so how exposed are you there? A future ex-spouse. And so that can show up, and not only for our clients, but a lot of times it's really for our clients' children. Some of them are babies, and some of them are teenagers, and some of them are already married. And so then we're talking about inheritance planning, where you want that to stay within the bloodline, not enrich a future ex-spouse. And so um, our analysis or comments, our recommendations are around the entire picture. And I think that if you're just tackling just what many people do, one bite of it at a time, you're really missing the boat and you're leaving yourself very exposed. And so uh, that's a space that I really love being in. I love the architectural side of our business. And it's just fascinating to me that you can have two people with very similar fact patterns. And so I can look at a fact finder for Dr. A and Dr. B, and married, two kids, similar income, and yet where they want to go,
Mhm.
how they're going to get there, what their appetite for risk are. Some of them hate their employees. Some of them love their employees.
Mhm.
Some of them are charitably inclined. Some of them are not. And it just takes you on completely different directions. And that's part of it that I love. It's not monotonous by any
Yeah.
stretch of the imagination. And there's a lot of psychology that comes in it, because you really try to pull from the client or the prospective client, what do they really want? And it takes a little bit of a dance, getting
Yeah.
comfortable with that person for you to really understand that. And so again, it takes a lot of time. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and obviously we started our relationship as doctor patient. Like you said, you were endurance athlete and we met that way. And one of the things I always respected was you didn't come in and hard sell me on anything. We just, built a relationship there. And one of the things that we always connected on was your desire to learn and to be a better entrepreneur yourself. And I was going down that path, and we're always comparing books that we're reading. And you're part of EOS now, and you have the EOS implementer in your practice. And we talk about strategic coach all the time. And that was like when I was finally ready, and it felt like I was in a place to do this. That's why I reached out to you. And because, ironically, as a member of Strategic Coach since 2013, I'm in a room full of financial industry folks. And so I could have cherry picked one of 100 out of there. And they're all great. But I just felt like we had that kind of kindred spirit of entrepreneurship, and you understood that I'm looking at things a little bit differently because obviously you mentioned there's the advisor side, there's the planning side, and I felt like I really needed a lot of the planning side of things because like if you're a corporate employee and you get a W-2 and your paycheck, like there's only so much that you can do. Whereas if you're a business owner, there's a lot of different ways you can invest money and a lot of layers of protection that you need as well. And so, where I want to take this right out of the gates was, I had my first child in 2020, and things were going good financially. And, I own my office real estate. I own two and a half businesses, and there's assets in the house and all the different things. And now I have a child, and my wife went from a professional out working to now a professional in the house and working, obviously raising our kids. And so there was a lot of protection I wanted to have. And so one of the things was we sat down first and did a full financial planning. And so let's look at it as from an angle of we're trying to protect our family. Do you start out with the financial plan, and does that like highlight some holes in insurance policies, or maybe you don't have a will and trust, and that's where would you start with this whole thing?
So that's a great question. It's really going to depend on who's surrounding you, right? So let's just say, I'll give you an example. Let's just say that you're working with you don't have an advisor, you're working with a trusted estate attorney, and
Mhm.
maybe you have a will. So if that trusted estate attorney is good, really good, and they're not doing real estate deals, they're not chasing ambulances. Really, their core focus is estate planning, but they have a special degree, an LLM, specifically in tax or J&E. And they speak the language that you want them to speak. That
Mhm.
might not be a bad place to start because, I'm of the opinion that no matter what the assets are, that a love will or individual wills are not going to cut it. And so at the very basic the estate planning that one should consider if they're married or they're individual, they're not married, are just an individual will that's called a pour over will. And all that means is that anything that I did not title to the trust pours over into the trust when I die. So what that does is just cleans up probate. So really no asset protection there. But if if I died and it was able to come back 3 days later and I left somebody in that situation, I would see the mess I'd left behind.
Yeah.
And probate is a really nasty process for somebody to go through. It's expensive and there's really no need for it. And
Mhm.
so simple, just a creation of a will that pours over to a revocable trust, which then becomes irrevocable at death. You've now bypassed the probate side of it. And now once those assets are in the irrevocable trust, they're now asset protected for the estate. And so again, if you don't have that, or you're dealing with an advisor that's really more of a stockbroker or just really does assets, but not the full picture, that may not be a bad way to go. And then don't be afraid to ask your advisor questions,
Yeah.
and just be really careful there because a lot of advisors will say, just like a lot of attorneys will say, I can handle that. I can handle that. And then it's fine. Maybe if your estate is business practice is simple in
Mhm.
the beginning, but as you grow, you're going to outgrow that person really quick. And then the really concern comes in when you're not getting the proper advice and then something happens.
Yeah.
That can come vis-a-vis a lawsuit, a death, just anything like that. And so I think if you get it right from the beginning,
Mhm.
it's going to save you a lot of time and aggravation that hopefully won't happen in the future. But look, we're all gonna die, right?
Yeah.
None of us are getting out of this alive.
Mhm.
That's for sure. And so I think getting it right from the beginning makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
And so
All right, Docs, here is a new opportunity for you from Darcy Sullivan of Propel. She is our SEO specialist in helping out many chiropractors with their search engine optimization and making sure Google is finding you and getting you new patients. It's amazing how many new patients chiropractors can get and are getting when they do the SEO right and a few other things. And Darcy is offering a free SEO workshop just for chiropractors, and you can sign up for that at bit.ly/propelmcm. That is bit.ly propelmcm, modern chiropractic marketing, right? And so check out that link. And we're going to have you go over 5 SEO secrets to owning the first page of Google without buying ads. And Darcy's going to give that free workshop, 1 hour, to really help grow your practice and start churning new patients from the ever mighty Google, which is still king in the online marketing. So check that out at bit.ly/propelmcm for the 1 hour free workshop.
if you have an advisor, I would ask questions about, give me an idea of the type of planning that you do.
Mhm.
Let them redact a sample plan, not a sample plan, but an actual client plan, and see what it's about. Triangulate your decision. You want to work with somebody that is not afraid to collaborate. That's a big, big thing. And so a lot of advisors just don't want anyone looking under their tent.
Yeah, and let me speak to that too, because I'm gonna use kind of myself as the example. I don't mind sharing my audience and stuff, but I do have a good law firm I work with in different capacities, and we did the will and trust stuff, and then your group was able to review it, so there was that collaboration, which was nice to do that, and I felt really good about that process and really locked in to where if something happens, we're going to be okay, and so that was really good. And so I want to go to the next thing was, in my scenario, if I were to pass tomorrow, there's a private practice that has to sustain itself until my wife could sell it, or my attorney would sell it for her. But there that would take some time. There's the office real estate that I have that the practice pays rent, to it, that mortgage has to be paid every month. There's a lot of things that have to be paid, and if I'm no longer here to do it, we needed a plan for that. And so one of the things we did was a key person policy for my practice. So if I were to kick the bucket, $1 million would inject into my private practice, which I know would give my experts around me, like you and my attorneys and everybody, enough time to make sure the practice is still sustaining itself, pay its bills, and obviously probably sell it in the real estate at that point, most likely. But it would give the business the financial layer. Can you speak to that kind of key person
Yeah.
policy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a pretty inexpensive thing to do, based on your health, obviously, your ability to get it. But I think really think it's a no brainer. And
Mhm.
look, from my side of it, I have the benefit, and sometimes I'm fortunate to witness folks that don't take the time, or come to me just too late in the game,
Mhm.
and or they've been just ill advised from an advisor that maybe took out some insurance that was great long term, more expensive, permanent, but they really needed a lot more coverage, and so there just wasn't enough capital for them to have that. And so I think it's crucial for any business to really insure themselves, because
Mhm.
what you're talking about is the ability for the team to collaborate, the, the the spouse that just lost the husband, or a wife, to really have time, because the last thing that you want to do is approach somebody with more bad news, more quick decisions.
Yeah.
And so if you have a war chest that gives you the ability, just pause.
Yeah.
We know that the staff's going to be paid, the mortgage or the rent's going to be paid. We've got time. We're not in a rush to take. So if you're selling it,
Mhm.
you don't have to sell it on a fire sale,
Yeah.
where you would have to sell it at a fire sale or shut it down. Even worse, because you just can't keep it open. And so, what's your business really worth?
Mhm.
Kind of worth what are you insured for?
Yeah.
Because other than the with the work in progress, or also known as WIP, uh, you really don't you're not sure if the patients are going to stay.
Mhm.
I mean, there's all these unanswered questions. So I think that at the very least, a key person insurance policy, not only for the chief doctor, but potentially for some other key people that are in that business. So when we come through and we do an analysis, one of the things we ask is, who's key in the business and why. And
Mhm.
if we get some indication that so and so is invaluable to me,
Yeah.
and she does just so much, again, it's really not expensive at all to put some insurance on that individual. This way, if they passed away last night, which is technically possible, that you're going to have some time. And look, if you take me as an example, uh, I have a lot of recurring revenue in my company. And so if something happened to me, um, the recurring revenue would come in, and I have a ton of insurance on me. So everyone has a lot of time. But even my wife, who is a fantastic mother and wife, is dealing with three kids, and thank God they're teens now, so they're a little bit older. But heaven forbid something happened to her, I don't know if I'm going to need a month or 6 months
Yep.
to get back into the game. And
Mhm.
so having that luxury of just hitting the pause button
Yeah.
and being able to think things through. And as you mentioned, really having a team that collaborates around each other, that already have had some contact, they
Mm.
worked together, is beyond important.
Yeah.
Because I think you're missing a big component of all this if you don't have that.
Yeah, and to your point, you insisted that I insured Laura, and I really wasn't thinking that way because she stays at home and isn't necessarily earning a direct income. So if she passed, I didn't look at it from that perspective. But yeah, if she did, I'd be toast, like mentally, and I wouldn't be able to earn and do the things. And so we put a policy on her as well. So life insurance policy there. So I'm glad you brought that up. I probably was gonna forget about that. So that is important as well. So the audience out there is obviously in your personal life, even if the one spouse may be not earning a direct income, they are obviously invaluable to the family. And if something were to happen, you would really want, again, like I loved how you put that, is like not have to make quick decisions because you've got the finances to be able to take your time and let the emotions, like there's going to be obviously so much involved in it, that you don't at least have the financial pressure. So that's a great one. And then rolling right into the next thing was, obviously we have life insurance policy on myself, a pretty substantial amount. Do you have like kind of I know there's a lot of questions that you would ask for how much someone should take on themselves, but is there a kind of like a quick and easy, like you probably should consider this amount if you're earning this amount type of deal, or is it
Right.
variable?
So that's a great question. And there's a few ways to get there. Right. So if you have a real planner, right, and I'm not talking about someone that just uses some software and spits out a number, because we do some of that, but we can really do custom work.
Yeah.
That's one route. So let's talk about the easy route first. So the easy route is a multiple of income. And
Mm.
so you might say, I want to replace 10 years worth of income for my non-working spouse or working spouse, because
Yeah.
there are hard costs, even if there's a spouse working, because if you're like you have young kids and you're fortunate that your wife can stay at home. But if she's not there, now those kids are going to need somebody to be there with them full time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the same case if somebody's working and and have the ability to get in and out. And so a multiple of income is a kind of a standard formula. Another formula that I like even more is how big does the war chest have to be at a conservative rate of return to never have the money run out. So let's just say that you need net of taxes, you need $50,000 a year. And in
Mm.
today's world, rates have come up a little bit. We can get 5% today on something. And so that's $1 million. $1 million in something in a conservative vehicle is going to provide that 50,000 a year for
Mm.
forever, as long as they don't depend. A better way is the planning way.
Yeah.
And so if I'm doing a cash flow analysis and I'm looking at everything, right?
Mhm.
Rent, mortgage, expenses, college, um, daycare. I mean, the laundry, the dry cleaner. I mean, all of it, which is what we do. We've done that for you. And I'm looking at everything and I flow it. And then we look at different periods of time where something might happen. You're going to come very, very close to, actually, you're going to come spot on what the actual need is going to be. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And so rather than figuring this out on a hope,
Yeah.
I hope I took out enough insurance.
Yeah.
I hope I plan enough for retirement. I hope you can really drill it down to a real number. And so in my almost 30 years of doing this, I've never found a better way than taking a deep dive under the hood to really, really figure this out. And that exposes not just this need, that exposes again the need for your wife.
Yep.
Maybe expose other things, the key person insurance on the business,
Mm.
maybe a buy sell contract if there are two partners in business. So it really looks at those gaps that I mentioned earlier, and it just highlights them, right? You're putting a spotlight on 'em. You could do something about them or not. I don't care.
Mm.
It's our job as planners to just say, hey, this is something that's there. And again, you know that I never push anybody into anything.
Yep.
I just put it out there, and then it's up to the individual to say, yes, I want it or not. And if they
Mhm.
say yes, then we take it upon ourselves to make sure it gets implemented properly. And that's when I've reached out to your accountant at times when we've done some stuff.
Yep.
I've reached out to your attorney at times and so forth, because again, that collaboration is key and needed.
Yeah, and I've got quite a team around me, which has been awesome. And I liked how we did do that. And we looked at, okay, how much estimated would I be able to sell the office real estate for? That goes into the hopper. How much could we sell the practice for? That goes in the hopper. There'd be some leftover money from the key person policy. And then obviously with my life insurance policy, if I were to pass, that lump sum of money would spit off your yearly amount where my wife and kids could live the same life that they're living now, not a different life. And so that was important to me. And so we definitely use that kind of reverse engineering planning out to look and like she could live to like 125 and
Yeah.
it would cover it. So it was cool to be able to do that, which I really enjoyed. And it felt good about it. And I want to kind of touch on the team thing because I do have a good team around me. And I even wrote out on like it's not an official document, but I wrote out and I told my wife, I was like, look, if I die, here's the document of like, here's the real estate agent, who's gonna run payroll is this person. And so it's kind of right now, like who is going to be kind of tackling things to try to get to where she doesn't have to worry about it. So that was something else we kind of did and just had a little conversation around it because I know it's not a comfortable conversation. No one wants to talk about dying, but
Right.
it's obviously, it's a reality. And I feel very good that if something were to happen, that financials would not be a problem for my family. They would have enough, grief and long-term things to deal with me passing at a young age. They don't need to deal with the money side of things. And so I felt good about that. Um, anything to end kind of that part of it. And I just want to segue quickly into a little bit of the financial fortress. You know, let's say we stay alive, we're alive because you got to have, money and certain things to prevent potential recessions and things like that. But anything to kind of put a bow on the, protecting yourself in passing type of thing.
Yeah. So one of the hardest things that I come across is when I get that call from an attorney that refers me to a client, and one of the spouses takes on the role
Mhm.
of handling all of this stuff,
Yep.
and they don't communicate it. And so that individual, he or she, is just completely lost. Now
Mhm.
they've been blindsided, whether it was a known thing, cancer or something like that, or just somebody not waking up in the morning. It's so difficult for that person to get up to speed.
Yep.
And then the other thing that happens is that they become they are vulnerable at that point in time. And so if you don't take the time to build this team ahead of time, this is the other thing that I see, someone else is likely to come along and maybe you get lucky, but a lot of times they get
Mhm.
taken advantage of. Either another person in their life as a partner, or people in the business, or advisors, or fill in the blank. And so, like you, Kevin, my wife doesn't even balance a checkbook, right? But she sure knows what she needs to do if something happens. It's
Yeah.
completely mapped out. I'm not. Look, I don't plan on leaving the party for a long time.
Yep.
And, but I can get hit by the convertible asteroid today, right now,
Yeah.
as I'm sitting here doing this podcast. But I know that they're all set. Yeah, they're going to miss me, and it's
Mhm.
not going to stink. but I know that they're all set. And the key thing is not just financially, as you put it,
Mm.
the relationships, the whether you do it on a piece of paper or you do it a little more formally, right? It's just key that they not only know where to call, that even at some point that's just there are some introductions that are made, so that there's a level of comfort with these advisors, the attorney, the accountant, and that doesn't have to happen all at once. It's not like, hey, let me get this done January 1st. But I think it's important that there's a level of comfortability for them
Mm.
because, again, they're going through a tough time already. It's going to be a lot worse if they need to figure this all out on their own.
Definitely, definitely. All right, so let's segue. Obviously, you got a business go. Everybody's got a business going. Chiropractors are most of my audience. We do have some marketers on there, but things are going pretty well. You've protected yourself in death. Now you obviously got to protect yourself in life as well, and your family. I have had Christine Odo on here, who's still one of my financial coaches in a sense of kind of like my de facto CFO in ways. And she's obviously a huge proponent of emergency savings funds and doing that. Do you work with some of your clients on that as well as like protecting, the family fortress here in life? And what are some of your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, it's one of the key pillars in all of this. And so, look, threats are all over the place. We live in a litigious society.
Yeah.
Um, there are bad mistakes that can be made, even in invest, right? Getting into crypto, uh, January of this year, probably not a good thing. And so there's that FOMO, fear of missing out, and everyone
Yeah.
catches a wave. And some people are lucky enough to jump off earlier. So that again, the threats come from all over the place, and
Mhm.
now vis-a-vis the internet, it's very easy to look at something, research something, and all that glitters isn't gold. And so you have to take a hard look at things like asset protection. And so here in the state of Florida, we have some freebies, right? We live in a state, and again, I think we're talking to folks that are all over the country.
Yeah,
And
even outside of the country, yeah.
yeah, and so you need to work with an advisor that understands your state specific laws. We have clients all over the place, even outside of the country, and it changes state by state. And some states have better asset protection laws than others. So here, I can give you a couple that are easy. Is never ever ever have a joint with right to survivorship bank account at the bank.
Mhm.
Why? The state of Florida gives you a premium joint tenants by the entirety. That means that both parties have to get sued for them to get that checking account or that savings account. So here in the state of Florida, there are four things that have asset protection that are in the Florida statute.
Mhm.
And that is anything that is a qualified or IRA type plan, your homestead at home,
Mhm.
anything that's in an annuity. And there's some really bad ones out there, so you've got to be careful. But there's some fantastic ones out there that are inexpensive, but most of them are not. So just be
Mhm.
buyer beware. And then life insurance, right?
Yes.
So and there specifically, I'm talking about not just on the death benefit side, but on the cash value side. So if you're in a whole life contract that builds cash or a variable contract, which is like an equity play, those things have asset protection. And then outside of that, there's other things. And then so I like to put a moat around the assets. And so those are things like properly titled assets. So if you own real estate, for example, and you own two or three properties, not a smart thing to have them in one company.
Yep.
Because if there's a slip and fall on one, guess what? They now are taking possession of all.
Mhm.
And so separate LLCs, even in business. So some states LLC is better than S corp or C corp, and so understanding your state specific laws there. Sometimes there's layers, right, where we take different layers again to put more. Really, what you want to do, and again, you can make this really, really, really complex. And I don't do that, but just a few layers of protection. And what happens is that if you get sick,
Mhm.
they go to an attorney and there are assets that are in your assets are in two buckets, right? Just visualize this. There's a private bucket and then there's a not private bucket.
Mhm.
So the attorney can very simple while you're interviewed, do a search, and they can see what's in the bucket, right? What can they go after?
Yep.
And so if they don't see a lot of things in the bucket that they can go after, but then they notice that there's some legal work, or that the assets are structured in a way that just makes the hurdle that much higher, they're going to pass on the case. And this has been told to me by attorneys that do this for a living.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things that I would take into consideration. I've given you a couple of examples in
Yep.
terms of titling, in terms of vehicles, and this stuff changes. Not the Florida statutes, because that stuff that is in, but even let's take the last couple of years, we came really close to tax bill coming in that would have changed the way we do estate planning.
Yep.
And so some of the tools that we use to give our clients asset protection would have been changed maybe forever, well, at least until the next president came into power. And so again, you need to have a decent understanding of this, but more importantly, work with a team that is constantly sharpening a saw and not a dinosaur, because this stuff does change. And sometimes it takes moving some things out of state.
Yep.
So there are states that have, even outside of Florida, that have fantastic asset protection. South Dakota is one of them. Nevada is another. Delaware, Alaska. And depending on the assets, the complexity, how far you want to take this, if there's a potential inheritance that's coming down the road, all of those will have us consider different strategies. And like I said earlier, some of these things are like running another business. But if you have the right team, you're not doing most of that work.
Yeah.
They're doing it for you.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's great. There's obviously a lot of moving parts to that depending on what state there is. I touched on the emergency savings stuff. So I wholeheartedly believe in having that cash on hand for emergencies. We obviously saw the need for that in COVID down here in South Florida. I had prepared one for hurricanes, not a pandemic, but it was helpful either way. And then, a lot of the essentials that a lot of chiropractors know about, but I'd be remiss not to say it. Obviously, your malpractice insurance is important. Liability insurance for if someone slips in your office is important. I do have a disability insurance as well. Those have become challenging to get. They're not great, even if you can get them, but I do have a disability insurance in case I hurt myself. And so there's a lot of things you got to look at to make sure that you really are protected on all levels in case something happens unforeseen usually. And whether it's in life or if you do pass, like, you just want to make sure you have peace of mind on there. And so, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on to dive into this. I know it could probably be a whole week's long course on it, and we touched on a lot of really good aspects of it. If my audience has any questions, tell them the name of your firm and how they could reach out if they wanted to chat with you further.
Sure. The name of the firm is The Bridge Group. Our website is thebridgegroup.com. Our office phone number here is 954-958-4220. We do service clients all over the country. And so that's not an issue here. And so that's the best way to reach us. If we can help in any way, great.
Perfect.
Now, and by the way, as Kevin mentioned, there's no pressure here. So a lot of times somebody will come reach out for a question. Happy to answer that question.
Awesome. And your group's also done our business 401k for our employees. That's been huge for us. And so obviously there's a whole other side of things we didn't get to today, but I definitely recommend reaching out to Michael. And again, I appreciate your time today, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.